Welcome to the channel, everyone. Today I am in Ripon Cemetery in North Yorkshire, England. Let me tell you about a story of a Japanese family who left Japan in 1898 to live in America. From my research, it's pretty clear that they have family still living. So whilst I want to honour the family, I also want to respect their privacy. So there's some things that I'm not going to go into too much detail about. America must have been a massive change for a Japanese family at that time, and their motivation's unclear as to why they went. However, there's quite a lot of literature around that suggests that Japan at the time wasn't a great place to live. It was overpopulated, and that had a particular impact on farmers, meaning that the land available just wasn't enough to sustain a family. Assuming they were farmers in Japan, they would have been extremely poor and viewed as a very low class, despite the fact that they kept Japan in food. Apparently the labouring classes moved to America for money, although America didn't actually advertise for immigrants from Japan. Stories drifted back to Japan from America. There were tales of a potato king in California who made a lot of money as a Japanese immigrant, and so people motivated by this left for America. The family, the Nishimuras, set up in North Dakota near Minot. What life was like for immigrants at this time is unclear, although Colin Oxley, writing for a local web page in Ripon, suggested that it wasn't good. They faced a lot of discrimination. It is clear that the Nishimura family did leave Minot. Apparently, with all of their machinery and all of their livestock, it must have been quite a sight, and it also must have been quite a journey. For whatever reason, the Nishimura family left behind their eldest son, Toki as he had become known. I've not found the motivation for this. It's probably something that's lost to history now. However, knowing that the family probably did face discrimination, I would like to hope that this was out of love. Toki was adopted by a family, the Slocum family, and became known as Toki Slocum. The rest of the family, 3 sons and 2 daughters, journeyed the 300 or 400 miles, depending on the exact route, north to Antelope, Saskatchewan. It's a small town, if town's really the word for it. From what I've seen, there was a Canadian Pacific Railroad stop, a post office, and from the pictures I've seen, very little else. Saskatchewan had only joined the Confederation 5 years earlier, and the Nishimura family were the first Japanese family in Saskatchewan at the time, and they were likely the only Japanese family for miles. By 1911 though, it's clear that they have now acquired Canadian nationality. Some of the family have adopted English forenames. At least one other Japanese man is living close by, although the census is unclear as to who it is. I just can't read it. Perhaps tales of the Nishimura family's success in Canada had filtered back to Japan in the same way that the stories of the Potato King had. By 1916, the census of the prairies suggests that they were Presbyterians now, although subsequent censuses list them as Church of England, so I really don't know how much weight to put on that. The Nishimuras had a son, Sannosuke Nishimura. He became known as Sam. Sam was drafted into the Canadian Army on the 4th of June 1918 in Regina, Saskatchewan. I don't know how he felt about that, and I don't know how his family felt about it. But you'll remember he had a brother who was left behind in the United States. That brother joined the US Army despite not being a citizen at the time. I'm fairly sure from what I've read that he couldn't actually be a citizen of the United States at those times. Toki had gone to the United States and went on to the University of Minnesota and studied law at Columbia University, and it was while at Columbia University that he left to join the army. He saw action in France, he was gassed, and he lived with the lasting health effects of that for the rest of his life. He also reached the rank of Sergeant Major, which was the highest non-commissioned rank of any Japanese soldier fighting for the US Army during the First World War. But this isn't a video about Toki. Let me know if you would like me to look at Toki in more detail, but I'm not looking at him in much more detail today. Whatever Sam's motivations and feelings around being drafted were, and whatever those of his family were, he found his way into the 15th Reserve Highland Battalion of the Canadian Army. His service record seems to be quite specific about his place of birth in Japan, Sayayukan. Although I do apologise if I'm pronouncing that wrong. I can't find a place matching that name in Japan. Now there could be a couple of reasons for that. It might be that it's a misspelling. It might be that the person writing it down misheard. It might be that the place just doesn't exist anymore. I really don't know. Again, Colin Oxley researched this and suggests that he was born in or around Fukushima. Now, I don't know whether this place is in Fukushima or not. I don't know. Sam's service record also suggests that he was Presbyterian. However, it also suggests that he was other religions in other places in the service record. The service record's quite jumbled at times, and I get the impression that at some point it was dropped and just shoved back into the file and just put away, probably fairly early, as some of the records seem quite jumbled fairly early on. Getting Sam ready for the front and combat, like his brother Toki, took a while. Obviously you couldn't fly to the UK in those days, and on the 28th of July 1918, Sam left for his second ocean voyage, this time across the Atlantic, from Montreal to Liverpool. He arrived in Liverpool on the 15th of August 1918 and was quickly sent to Bramshott in Hampshire, arriving there on the 16th of August 1918. This is where I really struggled with Sam's service record, and from this point on I'm not confident in some of the details, although I'm happy to carry on with the story as far as it goes. Bramshott was a large camp for the military, and particularly for the Canadians in England. Its graveyard contains over 318 Canadian servicemen. The camp consisted of wooden huts for accommodation, an open-air theatre, shops, a bank and a cinema. While at Bramshott, Sam passed his bombing and rifle bombing training on the 26th of September 1918. Today these would be familiar to us as hand grenades and rifle grenades. He still had another 8 weeks of training before he was able to serve overseas, and Sam was likely to miss the fighting during the war. He'd have to wait in England to be demobilised without firing a shot in anger, but at least he'd be safe. He'd be able to return to his family unharmed and hopefully live a long and happy life. Along with the camp, there was a military hospital, and this is where Sam found himself on the 26th of September 1918. He was admitted with influenza. He was probably feeling quite ill when he passed his bombing and rifle bombing training, as this was the same day. Now, again, I don't know whether this is an error in the records, whether this is things catching up with themselves, the paperwork catching up with itself, or quite what, but it seems a little strange to me. But either way, this was the start of the flu pandemic that killed an estimated 50 million. So you could be forgiven for thinking that Sam was a victim of the Spanish flu as it was known at the time. But not so fast. Sam was discharged on the 22nd of October 1918. So, with a few weeks left of the war and 8 weeks left of training, although he didn't know it at the time, Sam was destined to miss fighting in the First World War. He had missed the horrors of the front. Not only that, Sam had missed being a victim of the Spanish flu. He was lucky. He was probably more lucky than he realised. On the 11th of November 1918, at 11 AM local time, the guns fell silent. But Sam would have to spend Christmas and spring 1919 in England, demobilising the thousands of men who were participating in World War I would take a long time, and Sam would have to wait. This is where things get jumbled again. According to his military records, he was admitted to Bramshott Hospital on the 4th of May 1919, this time with abdominal swelling. However, his military record also suggests that he was already in Ripon Military Hospital on the 12th of April 1919, and that's why I'm in Yorkshire rather than Hampshire today. So this is a short extract from Sam's service record. Ripon, 12th of April 1919, says he was in Bramshott Military Hospital in September 1918 with influenza, made a fairly good recovery but has continued to suffer from constipation, some abdominal pain, particularly around the umbilicus, sweats worst at night and loss of weight. During the past 14 days, progressive weakness has set in and the abdomen has got gradually distended. Lungs, emaciated chest with flattening at right apex, some defective air entry with distant tubular breath sounds. Base is clear, no TB in sputum. Abdomen, distended, free fluid present. No evidence of portal obstruction, no enlarged liver or spleen, no abnormal tumour, palpable urine, no albumin present. To isolation hospital. Signed R.S. Snowy, Captain, Royal Army Medical Corps. Sam would repeatedly become dangerously ill at his time in Ripon. He would improve and then be dangerously ill again, never recovering enough to be discharged. Sadly, Sam would never see Antelope again. On the 14th of July 1919 at 9:30 AM, he died of tuberculosis peritonitis. 14th of July 1919, weakness and emaciation increasing, receiving whiskey 4 hourly as required. Potassium chloride gargle. Had morphine 1/8 of a grain 3 nights ago on account of abdominal pain. Died 09:30 hours today. It was likely a secondary infection of TB, a latent infection that flared up after being re-triggered, probably by the environment that he was training in and living in. Despite the fact that his sputum test turned out negative for TB, this was a relatively common problem. American studies suggested that at least 10,000 men would be rejected for military service if modern screening methods were in place at the time. This was even more of a problem than it might seem at first, because a lot of servicemen being fit and healthy, would have contracted TB and not known it before. One thing I particularly want to draw your attention to is the optional text on Sam's grave. This would have been chosen by the family. Dulci et decorum est pro patria mori. It is sweet and proper to die for one's country. I don't know whether this gives insights into the thoughts and feelings of the family or Sam. Whether it's based on Wilfred Owen's The Old Lie poem of 1920, or whether they truly believed this, I just don't know. Ripon Military Hospital, which stood just outside Studley Roger near Ripon, was demolished in 1922. A monument now stands where it once was. Wilfred Owen spent some time convalescing here. You remember that he wrote a poem with the words featuring on Sam's grave. The hospital also features in some famous paintings of Canadian servicemen. I find the most poignant thing in Sam's service record are the medal cards. This shows that Sam received the British War Medal. This was sent to his mother on the 2nd of March 1921. She had sent a son to war and received back a medal. Sam Nishimura isn't alone in Ripon Cemetery. There are lots of other Canadian soldiers here, even some from his regiment. He's also not forgotten.